Hey, good morning, Freedom family. I am recording our message for Sunday, August the 30th. Still working through the book of Philippians. Going to be closing it out in a couple weeks and looking at some passages in Psalms to work through as we get through the fall time this year here in 2020. If you know me, if you follow me, if you see what's going on with me, I really enjoy spending time in downtown St. Augustine. There are some good things going on, there are some great things going on, and there are some bad things going on, and so it all kind of intertwines. But one of the great things that's going on right now is they are tearing down the Santa Maria restaurant. I'm not thankful that they're tearing it down. I'm thankful that they are going to remove it and come back with something nice. It's become an eyesore. I've never eaten there. I had never been there, but it would have. It's going to be cool to see it sitting out there on the water and see everything fixed up. But if you look online, the picture of this restaurant in all its glory is this amazing restaurant on a dock sitting in the water in the middle of the bay here in St. Augustine. And there's a dock that walks up to it. It's got the little sign. And online, when you look at the older photos, they actually had a neon sign on top that you could see from the Bridge Alliance. I remember as a kid, two things riding across the Bridge Alliance coming back from my grandma's tour downtown. One was the clock on top of the bank building, which is now the Treasury downtown. And then the other thing was the sign that you could see lit up on the roof of the Santa Maria. So if you look online, the Santa Maria still looks like that in all its glory. If you've walked by there in the past 5 to 10 years, it's you can tell what it used to be. You can tell that it used to be a fine establishment, a nice restaurant, and it's in shambles. If you've walked by it in the last couple of weeks, the front dock is kind of falling apart, but it's still there. The sign is still hanging. The front facing the road there looks about the same. So it looks like Santa Maria in disrepair. And then as you walk to one side or the other, you see behind it there's a crane and it has torn down about half of the building, and they have placed it on a barge to be removed so that they don't drop it into the water. Well, when you're looking at this building, it got me to thinking about that's how we kind of place our friendships. We have friends who only see what happens, the good stuff. Those are acquaintances that know what's going on. We only give them the highlight reel. And then we've got friends that go a little deeper. They get to see us. They see that things are kind of rough around the edges, but they only get to see the front. And then we have those friends who get to see the rest of the story. There are friends who have been there for us through every step of the way, through thick and thin. And they know that not only are we having a rough time, but they get to see around the side, behind the curtain, so to speak, and know that things are falling apart sometimes, and they get to see that part. And so in today's Paul's message, this is a letter he's written to the people of Philippi, to the Philippians. And I want to look at verses 14 and through 16 of chapter 4. It says, "Yet it was kind of you to share in my trouble. And you Philippians yourselves know that in the beginning of the gospel, when I left Macedonia, no church entered into partnership with me in giving and receiving except you only. Even in Thessalonica, you sent me help for my needs once again." Now last week, the last verse we looked at was Philippians 4:13, which is probably the most misquoted verse in the Bible besides Jeremiah 29:11, and it says, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." And it was a closeout to a talk about rejoicing in giving, finding contentment in the best of times and in the worst of times, being consistent. Paul says that when things are really high and when things are really low, I'm the same dude. You get the same guy. But today we roll into giving and how God rejoices when we give cheerfully. This whole text is about their kindness. It's about the Philippians' kindness toward Paul. and they're doing well and partnering with Paul when no one else wanted to. Excuse me. When Paul says the beginning of the gospel, he means when we first delivered it to them. So think about this whole letter. This letter is to a church who Paul had taken the gospel to originally, and now they have continued to part with him. Think about your cell phone. Think about an iPhone. I had planned on having mine sitting here to share with you, but I'm actually recording on it right now. That device, that iPhone, has completely changed life. There are good things and there are bad things that happen because of cell phones. It's all about your perspective and how you view it. Think about firsts. Think about the birth of your first child. Think about their first steps, their first words, their first day of school, their first time riding a bike, their first time driving. So many firsts. We treasure those moments, but we also love to share them. My two favorite days of the year for social media are Christmas and the first day of school. Graduation falls in there, a little bit of Halloween, but I'm a big fan of Christmas and Christmas morning and people opening their gifts and spending time with their family. Pictures of their children. And first day of school. Whether it's pre-K, kindergarten, 6th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, 12th grade, college, whatever it is, proud parents posting pictures of their children and sharing those things with them. It's about sharing life with the people around us. Paul was the first person to share the message of salvation, of Jesus' love for the people at Philippi, his unconditional love and his grace being poured out as an offering. And they've never forgotten it. It's a peek at what real loyalty looks like. It's a peek at what gratitude looks like. Gratitude is so important. So let's look back at the verses from the last 2 weeks, verses 10 through 13. Paul said, I rejoiced in the Lord greatly that now at length you have revived your concern for me. You are indeed concerned for me, but you had no opportunity. Not that I am speaking of being in need, for I have learned that in whatever situation, I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and of facing hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Paul was rejoicing, but isn't that kind of hypocritical to be rejoicing in their giving? To be saying, I know what it's like to have nothing. I know what it's like to have everything. I don't need any gifts, but I'm rejoicing in your gifts. Why is he rejoicing in their giving? Because we're meant for community. We are wired and put together to be loved on and to love on the people that God places in our lives. Just to have people who check in on you is all you need sometimes in life. Someone invested. Maybe they're invested with their time. Maybe they're invested with their prayers. Sometimes they're even invested with their money. That's what we need in life. We need community. We need people around us who love on us, who check on us, who keep us in check. But back to verse 14, we see Paul say, yet it was kind of you to share in my trouble. Kindness is huge in times of need. There's a spiritual lesson here for us that just because you are fine without the support does not mean you don't accept it. And it certainly does not mean you don't rejoice in it. My attitude has always been that I will work more if needed. If we need more money for something, I'll go work another job. Since my teen days, I cannot remember ever having just one job. Even when I was full-time at Ancient City, I mowed grass on Thursdays and I took time off to go work in construction when I needed race money or we needed money for something else. I've never had just one job. Here I am at 44 years old and I'm still the same way. I'm like, hey, if we need a little bit of money, I'm going to figure out a way. I've got some friends that own businesses that are more than happy to let me come labor for them, clean for them, lay sod for them. And I'm excited that they give me that opportunity to make that money. I've always looked at it that way. Working for small churches and nonprofits is no way to get rich. And I have no desire to ever be rich. But at times, someone tries to give us something or do something to bless me and my family. And I've always said, no, thank you. Or no, thanks, you don't have to do that. But I've learned, and God has showed me through the years and through several situations in the past few years, that when I say no to things like that, I'm robbing them. People with a desire to help, with a heartbeat for helping out in need an outlet. They need that opportunity to give. Paul realized that church in Philippi was showing their gratitude for him, bringing the gospel message to them by giving, and whether he found himself needing it or not, he was going to rejoice in it. He was going to accept it. Paul goes on to remind them that no church shared with him when he left Macedonia. Paul starts in Jerusalem, goes to Antioch, to Ephesus, to Philippi, from Philippi to Troas, then from Troas to Berea, and then to Athens. He's traveling around all these places. He is sharing the gospel. He is sharing the love of Jesus with people for the very first time in all of those cities. Lots of people were hearing the gospel message for the very first time, and only one said, hey, we want to partner with you. 1 Corinthians 11:9 says, when I was with you and was in need, I did not burden anyone, for the brothers who came from Macedonia supplied my need. So I refrained and will refrain from burdening you in any way. In his travels, Paul shared the gospel in many, many places, but only received in return from one of them. Philippi was not the only church he started, and certainly not the only place he had shared the gospel. He had traveled all around the region, but only one came through to help out. In this verse, when he is in Corinth, he was of no financial burden to them whatsoever, yet he shared with them openly the gospel and continued to do the work while being financially blessed from Philippi. Paul is not feeling entitled. There's a lot of entitlement in the world today. There are a lot of people that feel entitled. I laugh at some of the reviews that go on food sites. Everybody's become a foodie. I will post something if I have a delicious meal sometimes, and sometimes I don't, just because that's not really me. But I laugh when people say, oh, I've been to this restaurant 30 times. We go every week. But last week it just wasn't up to par. Well, you know what? I eat in this kitchen right over here. And where I'm seated right now, I'm facing my parents' house. And I loved to eat in Mom's house. Country fried steak, chicken and dumplings, pork chops, cube steak, just all the different lasagna, all the different amazing meals my mom could make. But you know what? She had bad nights. There were nights where the lasagna was a little burnt. Maybe the chicken and dumplings were a little soupy. But I ate them. And you know what I did? I went back again when I got invited to eat again, or when it was time to eat again when I was living there at home. I didn't go run my mouth and complain to everyone, because I didn't feel entitled. So when I go to a restaurant, yeah, I expect service, I expect good food, but I know that they're going to have a bad day sometimes, because they're humans. Paul knows that these churches were not supporting him, but he continued to share the gospel. He felt no entitlement. He felt no one owed him anything. And one reason he never had to feel that entitlement was because the church at Philippi took good care of him. From the very first day, he says, until now, they had supported him. Now the church, the group in Philippians, it was a very small church. They weren't very large at all. It wasn't a mega church sending a little bit of money. It was a small group of people sending everything they had. but from the first day is a reference to the beginnings of the church there. The jailer accepted Christ and invited Paul to his house that evening. Lydia accepted Christ and had him over the next day. They were giving from day one, and it never dwindled. These are great pictures of the church. There are two ways that you will hear me talk about the church. There's uppercase C and lowercase c. The uppercase C church is a church as a whole. It's all of the ministries and believers in the world helping with the gospel spreading and with meeting the needs of their communities with love. The lowercase c church is churches as their individual entities. It's Freedom, Coquina, Family Worship, Colonial, Ancient City, Anastasia Elkton, and on I can go. I've always defined ministry as meeting the needs of people in our community with love. I said in my very first sermon here at Freedom, I wanted to lead a ministry and not a church, not grow a church. I am not a growth-driven, number-calculating type of leader. That's just not me. I am excited about the opportunity to share the gospel with whoever shows up on Sunday mornings. A few weeks ago, I left the racetrack with an opportunity to win some money and a Wally in a borrowed car, and the race was paid for. All I had to do was stay the night with my wife's family and get up the next morning and go race. But I chose to come back because Sunday mornings I am fully committed to Freedom Church. And I knew that I was probably driving home to possibly single-digit people. With the coronavirus, with all that's going on, there are some Sundays where we have maybe a dozen to 15, 20 people. And I'm okay with that. And I rejoice in them. I don't feel entitled that people should be there. I am grateful for the ones who are. And I'm grateful for you sitting at home right now or at work or wherever you may be, listening to this message and allowing me to share my heart with you. You see, the very first time I gave that message, that's still my heartbeat. I'm not a growth-driven, number-crunching type of guy. That's just not me. And through the years, a lot of people have come and a lot of people have gone, and they've seen that as my weakness and they've seen that as my downfall. And for that, I apologize. I don't apologize for being me, but I apologize for letting them down. You see, the lowercase church meets needs by praying, by meeting together, and by worshiping and doing life together with one another. It's calling or texting that person you haven't seen in a while. It's knowing there are people that will pray for your loved ones when someone is sick, when someone's experiencing loss, when someone's in need. It's knowing that someone will meet those needs. It's praying for extended families and those who are a part of the church together so that we can meet the needs of our community. The uppercase C church is about reaching the world. And we clearly cannot reach the whole world as Freedom Church. We clearly cannot reach the world based on my skill or lack of skills. We can only do it by uniting our hearts, loving people the way Jesus would love them. And so our resources added to the resources of other churches and combined means we can reach millions with the gospel and grow God's kingdom. It's not about growing a church. It's easy to grow a church. You go in, you create a really cool setup, you get a great speaker, you get a good worship team, and people from all the other churches will come. That's going on right here in St. Johns County. Everybody from other churches will show up because they want to be a part of that. It's easy to grow a church. It's different to serve a community. And that's what I love about my Freedom family. We serve our community. That's what I love about my family. We serve the community every opportunity that we get. Now, outside of church, a few years ago, Tim Goss and I started a Jimmy Jam community outreach. And Jimmy Jam is an outreach that we put together. It started as barbecue contests and barbecue selling, and it's grown into a ministry. And we're meeting the needs of people throughout our community. And it's our community, all of St. Johns County and local communities coming together and meeting needs. We've had the opportunity to buy some amazing things and take care of some people in amazing ways that a little church like Freedom could never do, that maybe some large churches couldn't even do. But we've been able to do that because St. Johns County and the surrounding areas have supported what we're doing. We've put our resources together and we've met needs with love. And that's what it's about. It's about being the capital C church, not the lowercase c church. Let me pray with you. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day, God. We thank you so much for an opportunity just to open up your word and to see how Paul didn't feel entitled, but he rejoiced in every penny and every opportunity that the church of Philippi served him with. God, just continue to allow us and enable us and empower us to share your gospel message and to share your love with those we come in contact with. I pray for all these barriers that are being put up and all the division throughout our country, that we would tear all that down and just be your people. God, we love you because you loved us first. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.